Is a master's degree worth it? Can I study engineering and then become a consultant? How can I work in digital transformation as a consultant? All these questions and more in this episode. Like and subscribe. Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Careers Talks. Today I have Joan Saba. Joan has around 6 years of experience in the field of management consulting. He studied civil engineering in the UK at the University of Bath, and now he's working as a management consultant in a digital and business transformation firm. How are you, Joan?
Good, how are you?
Doing well.
Good,
How's
thank
your
you.
weekend?
Yeah, it's been rough, but we're here.
Fair.
We made it.
Fair. Thanks for coming today. So, John, you studied civil engineering. Can you tell me a bit more about that decision? Why did you pick civil engineering and what influenced that decision, let's say?
That's a very good question. I get that asked quite a lot, actually. Being an Arab person, when you decide what you want to do, you're either an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, or a disappointment. So it was very much influenced by my parents. When I was at school, I was good at math, sciences, physics. So and I used to like building things. So it was kind of in between architecture or civil engineering, purely because I like to sort of create things and drawing. I used to be quite good at that. So I kind of went with where my interests lie, as opposed to setting up and understanding what the industry is and what the type of project is. So for me, that was, I wouldn't say mistake number one, but I would say it was one of those like blind decisions that you just take when you're 17. You don't know. And then just ended up in Bath doing civil engineering. And yeah, that was kind of like the first time I interacted properly with the engineering world. First year I did it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm quite good at it. So I felt, okay, this is a career or a degree that I can at least see to the end.
Yeah, I like that you touched on, you thought of a skill or something you wanted to do, which is building stuff, and that, at least within your environment, was associated with engineering. But I would say there's a lot of different other degrees where you can build stuff, whether it's models or
definitely.
Yeah,
I thought about mechanical engineering and specifically car design. That was what I wanted to do. But then kind of in my head, I was like, well, if my long-term plan is to come back to Palestine, then there's not a market for that. Right?
So that's another challenge we face off. If you want to go back home on the long term,
so
what do you want to do?
You go with a relatively safe option of engineering, like civil engineering, where people will always need to build things back home. So you'll always find a job.
Makes sense.
That sort of mentality.
Makes sense. And then you directly did a master's program.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about that program? It was in management. So what exactly, like briefly, what do you do in a master's of management and why did you do it?
So the master's in management, I did that at Imperial College Business School. It's kind of it takes a very broad lens on management related topics and business related topics. So you do things from operations management and project management to finance, accounting, whether it's financial or managerial accounting, into things like organizational behavior, marketing. So it's a very broad lens of things. And what you do is most of it is, you get like it's very broad. So it's not like you get one depth in a specific area, but you get the choice to do that in the final semester. So you get a broad view first two semesters, and then the third trimester is where you get to choose, kind of like if you think of a T-shaped approach, you get to choose where to focus. And I chose to focus on digital.
Nice.
Because I felt that digital transformation had a lot to sort of do with business, and businesses were investing in that quite a lot. And in terms of like what you do, you sort of do a lot of group work, trying to solve business problems that are related to that specific module. And a lot of it was it was a mix of building those technical skills, but also the soft skills around group work, presentation, like writing properly, all that sort of stuff, which pitching, getting funding, all that sort of stuff, it was quite valuable because that's something that an engineering degree would not teach you. So that was pretty good. And why did I do it? I did a placement year in my engineering degree. And I don't know whether your viewers know what a placement year is, when you take a year out to work in industry. And I did a structural civil engineering role for a year, and that was my first proper exposure into the engineering space in the UK. And that just opened my eyes in terms of, even though I was good at it at university, that wasn't something that I wanted to do as a full-time career. So for me, that was a moment of, panic, because I was like, I've built, I've planned so far to be in this space. And then all of a sudden it dawns on you and you're like, This is it.
Yeah.
Like I'm 2 years into my degree. I have 1 year left, so I don't know what to do. So I went back to uni to do my third year. And then I was like, my two flatmates were talking about, they want to, and they both were engineers on my course, and they were saying, I want to go into finance and I want to go into consulting. I was like, guys, when did this happen, right? So I had to talk to them and understand what they wanted to do. And the consulting side of it really appealed to me. So I was like, okay, what skills do I need? And then I identified those skills and then looked for a degree to help me build those skills, buy me some time to think about what I want to do, and also introduce me to the world of consulting.
Yeah, because I remember I was kind of relatively recently in that phase where I graduated, and I remember a lot of my classmates were like, they weren't sure, okay, I'll apply to some master's programs, I'll apply to some jobs. So I would say I can see why someone would take that decision or make that decision of, I want to have that year to think.
Exactly.
And if you do it in business as an engineer, it kind of makes sense. But that also doesn't mean, I'm assuming, that you can directly shift from a degree into civil engineering directly into the business professional world. But I guess for you needed that time to assess, what do I want to develop, and then you took that decision when you really knew what it was, which is a very good step, to be honest, because a lot of people rush into an industry as engineers that is not engineering, and then they say, this might have not been
exactly
right.
And that year also gives you that headspace, not just to think about it, but also think about how you can, all the learnings that you got from the engineering degree, how can you just tweak them slightly so they can apply to the business world.
Makes sense.
Which, that was really helpful.
You then, throughout the program, I'm assuming you were exposed to different business industries, let's call them. How did you make that decision of, I want to do management consulting at McDonald, or management consulting in general? And I think you started within the field of strategic asset management and project finance. So did you pick that, or because you got the offer, was it like, because I understand also some as international student, you get an offer, you just
take it. No,
exactly.
you're
so
right.
Can you walk me
through the logic
and your experience?
It's I think that period of my life was characterized by luck quite a lot. I think when you're applying, I never was really that good at interviews at that point. I've never done interviews. Like my placement year, it's one of one. I did one interview and I got the job. So it was like, it wasn't really that I wasn't really that good at them. So when I joined the master's program, I was just applying. You join in September, and then that's when the applications open anyway. So you don't even have time to think about what you want. You just have to you join and then you apply. So I used to call it the spray and pray approach. You know, you just spray applications everywhere, and you pray something comes up, right? I was lucky enough to get a lot of interviews, and some of them are with the big companies, the McKinseys, the BCGs of the world, the big four. I got interviews with all of them. Some of them, because they were early on in the process, I didn't do so well because I didn't necessarily have the right interview experience. Otherwise, other ones I would get, for example, Deloitte, I got to the final round. I applied to their real estate consulting firm. And it's kind of like, if I found something that's similar to my degree, the engineering degree, I would apply.
Yeah.
Real estate consulting, civil engineering, But at that point, I didn't necessarily know
where in consulting.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, even like a real estate engineer, I didn't know what it means because I had just started my course, right? So it's kind of like you go in and, if you haven't done enough research about it over the summer, then you're kind of already on the wrong foot, right? So didn't necessarily get those roles. I got a role with PwC. I applied to their consulting arm in London, and I got an assurance on audit role in Birmingham.
Okay.
So it was, it was one of those things that, and it was just pure because of timing.
Yeah.
It's because I had exams and I just postponed the assessment center by a week, and I had filled all of the management consulting roles. So for me, again, that was not a lucky sort of position.
Makes sense.
And then the reason why I applied to Mott is because it's got to a point where I didn't necessarily have any sort of leads that are generated. So I was thinking about, okay, potentially not management consultancy, but PwC is let's call it plan B at that point. But I need a plan A, and it was in Birmingham. I wanted to stay in London, so let me look at engineering firms and see what they do. And worst case, I applied to a project management role within an engineering firm, so not a management consultancy one. And then I was sort of scouring through the engineering companies, and I found this management consultancy at Mott. And then you could choose at that point, in Big Four terms, they come and they put you, that you apply as a generalist. And depending on project need, they allocate you to the project and the sector. So you don't necessarily even have a preference in the sector.
Yeah.
You can't even say what that is, right?
Yeah.
But Mott, I knew it was engineering. The sectors were infrastructure, energy. Always have been interested. I didn't want to do engineering in those sectors. I wanted to do consultancy. I was always interested in them. It's something that, coming from a third world country, it's very important, right?
Yeah.
It's all important for development. It's important for people's lives and sort of the impact that this it's really tangible impact. This type of work. You're benefiting a society, not corporations. So you could choose which on the grad scheme you could choose before you apply. So I was looking at them, and the project finance one really sort of appealed to me. So I applied and sort of got the role, and that was the last 5.5 years of my career was in that role. So
now you work as a digital transformation and sustainability consultant. How did you we can maybe tell me a bit more about what does that mean, especially in the context of your last 2-3 years at Mott. You started focusing on that, and now. So what does it mean to be a digital transformation consultant? And why do we need these consultants in that area, let's say?
That sounds good. So I'm gonna focus on the Mott MacDonald experience because that set me up to where I am now.
Makes sense, the last 2 years and then what you do now.
So when I joined the project finance team, I quite liked it. It was really good. It was basically, in a nutshell, it was helping investors and lenders, banks that want to invest in infrastructure and build new energy plants or schools, hospitals, whatever. So how do we work with them and the public sector to deliver those infrastructure projects?
Nice.
And what we would do is we would advise the banks and the investors about the risks that are the technical and commercial risks that would be part of the project, and how could they mitigate those risks to safeguard their money, basically. And we would work with financial advisors like the Big Four or legal advisors as well. Like it's kind of it's transaction based, right?
Yeah.
It was quite interesting, but didn't necessarily scratch the itch that I had, I suppose. And at that time, Mott MacDonald was launching a small spin-off called Digital Ventures, Mott MacDonald Digital Ventures, and it's all about digital transformation in the infrastructure and energy space.
Nice.
And obviously, coming from an engineering background and having focused on the digital transformation, the digital strategy and transformation side of my master's, I was like, obviously makes sense, right? So what does that mean? It means that so as a digital transformation specialist within the engineering space, and having worked in that small startup part of McDonald, it meant that I could try different things within digital transformation. Usually you're sort of pigeonholed into one, but I sort of had a really good go at different things. So the things that I would sort of try is, you know, in the digital strategy space, you know, you would work with, let's just give an example. You'd work with a hospital that wants to understand the impact of technology on the way they deliver hospitals and how they operate hospitals and how they deliver care to patients in the hospital and outside at patients' homes. So you're trying to understand, okay, what are your commercial and clinical drivers as a hospital? You know, what is the impact of technology in helping you deliver those drivers? Which technology is a priority, which is not? How do you prioritize? And then how do you sort of design a business case that enables you to ask the government for money to pay for this technology, and what are the benefits and sort of the cost benefit analysis and stuff like that. So, and then it's kind of like, you know, you do that, and then you look at, okay, this is now, what about in 5 years, what about in 10 years, and you look at the sort of the technology horizons and how it advances and how it will. So it's quite interesting, because you're really thinking at, you know, you're not thinking about the here and now, the project finance role that I had. You're thinking about 10 years down the line, and how can you sort of, you know, what is the limitations and what are the potential of different technologies in the healthcare space or energy space or so on and so forth.
Nice.
And then I also got involved in the product management space, which is basically Mott's Digital Ventures has a software as a service business, which is basically building software, selling it to clients on a monthly or annual subscription, and then making the, you know, sort of the revenue through that. So I was involved in building sustainability digital tool that, you know, works with investors to basically assess, you know, if those investors invest in energy infrastructure or, you know, whatever sectors. It takes data from the firm they're investing in, data from the investor itself, and data from open source, so like NHS Digital, indices of deprivation, so on and so forth, and the market that's publicly available, so that you're able to combine those in algorithms that tells you, okay, if you invest here, this is the impact on the environment, this is the impact on society, these are the sustainable development goals that you're touching upon. You know, it's really quantifying, you know, looking beyond the financial return of the investment and looking at the social and environmental return. So, and that was one product that Digital Ventures launched and is now sort of selling to clients. So I built that from scratch and productized it, which was the interesting part. It's like you build it with a client, and then you sort of take the bits that are reusable, you make them a product, and then you sell it directly to other clients. So that was quite interesting. And then the last bit was the corporate venture capital arm of McDonald, which is where we would invest in digital startups looking to revolutionize the infrastructure space. So there was a bit of VC activity as well. So my role was quite varied, and that's why I wanted to move into that bit of because it was quite an exciting one. It was away from the big McDonald sort of engineering focused really sort of like not hierarchical, but sort of you know, everyone knew what they were doing, as opposed to this is more dynamic,
undefined role.
Exactly.
Nice. Makes sense. So it seems you tried different fields within McDonald, which is great, and then you specifically chose digital transformation. Why did you choose digital transformation?
I think that's a good question, and it comes down to two things. It was sort of the opportunities. The opportunities for someone with my skill set were much sort of more available in the digital transformation team or space. You know, the product management space, you needed a bit. It's a very similar skill set, but like anything within other than product management, you know, you're talking about data engineering, data science, software development. Those are very technical skills I couldn't get into. And it didn't necessarily appeal to me as much, because you're focused on a product and you're sort of delivering a product solving one business problem to the client, right?
Makes sense.
Whereas on the digital transformation space, you're actually operating at that C-suite level. You're meeting the right people. You're not just looking, the client comes to you with 10 problems, right? You can't solve all 10 at the same time. So you're actually having to sit there and work with them to understand, okay, what are let's say the key 3 things that I need to solve, and what is residual, right? So you're actually there doing that prioritization. You're there engaging not just with the client, you're engaging with the suppliers. It's much more dynamic. It's at a strategic level that you're operating, and it actually is the thing that drives all the decisions, right? I think product management is just one aspect of a digital intervention, whereas this could be much wider and much bigger, right?
Yeah, I could see your point. Like, it's part of a digital vision.
Exactly.
Product management.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think it also gave me the opportunity to explore areas outside of digital as well. So, and you asked about sustainability and ESG and how did that come across? Within the digital transformation space, there's a data strategy function. And ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, is a big sort of is a big hot topic in the market at the moment. And for me, ESG is, there's all these frameworks that companies need to report against, and one of the big issues is understanding as a company which framework you need to report against. So to show the regulators that you're managing environmental and social risks and opportunities very well, and you understand the impact that you as an organization have
while you're transforming digitally, let's say.
So it's one of those things, but then at the same time, for me, I felt like this is one side of the ESG coin. The other side is, and it has a lot to do with digital, the other side is ESG is a data and a people problem.
Nice.
So, and those two things are things that you can tackle with digital transformation. So how do you understand which data do you need to get? Where do you get it from? How do you manage it? How do you have the right people understanding the roles and responsibilities of managing this data, keeping it up to date, single source of truth, that sort of thing, so that you have all this data in place to do that reporting and showing that you're complying with regulation and you're not. So there's a digital and people angle of making people also understand the importance of their role, looking at data literacy, how to deal with data, that sort of thing. So for me, I was like, oh, this is an angle that nobody really is exploring in McDonald's. So I kind of started to play in that space and started to work a lot with the sustainability and ESG team.
Nice.
So that before I left McDonald's, I was sort of at a global level operating to come up with a digital and ESG offer that we can sell to clients. So how can I provide that digital angle to this ESG problem?
Wow, it really touches on a lot of stuff, data, and how do you use that data to derive business strategies, business actions, let's say, and you want to also make sure that the people working in that institutions are aware of these changes, why they're happening, so they're also, let's say, digitally literate.
Exactly. So, and what does that mean? What does that mean for them?
Exactly.
Why do you need to do it? Because the thing is, you tell someone, oh, you need to make this data available, but it's like, why does it matter for me? Why?
Makes sense.
How do you embed it in the job descriptions of people? How do you potentially align incentives to that as well?
Makes sense.
So it's
And as an international professional, let's say, at that point, how did you make that decision of I want to shift from one company to another? Because there's those visa issues, you have some concerns about the sponsorship. So can you tell me more about that decision and the challenges you faced as an international student? As an international student when you decided to make a career shift or goal shift?